Hi everyone. Welcome to what is a little bit of a special video for me. Because I will be talking about my mom and my heritage. And so I have mentioned my mom in previous videos briefly, but I have never made a full video about her or talked about her at length, simply because I was not able to without it becoming a very sad event. But no sads in this video. I will be sticking to what I can talk about comfortably. So I will even be showing a picture of my mom later on. Now, this is actually the second time that I am filming this video, and I have no reason whatsoever that I can think of why the first version was not good enough. I guess because it is just so important to me that I'm just a little bit overcritical. So, the first version of this has a classic ASMRvelous introduction explaining what inspired this video and the circumstances around it. And that part of the video is actually included in my intro ramble compilation video. And I really want that video to be done at this point. So I will not be taking that out and putting this new version in. So in that compilation video, you will find the backstory that led to me creating this video and the request that it is tied to. So I will not be repeating all that, and I will just get to the video. Now that starts by explaining why we have this little vase here with a couple of dried sprigs. So, as many of you know, I have a forget-me-not tattoo. So I have a couple of forget-me-nots on a stem on my arm here. And the reason for that tattoo, the reason for that tattoo was to fill a void. But the meaning of that tattoo was to remember my mom. It's been 14 years now, and I just wanted just a tattoo, another one in her memory, because I will never forget. And so I got forget-me-nots. Now, my father is actually very much against tattoos. He does not like them at all. He's not a fan. But occasionally he will admit to liking one of my tattoos, or will be able to acknowledge that it is pretty at least. And the forget-me-not tattoo was one of those. So he thought it was very pretty, and he also, he took note that I liked these flowers very much. And so, being the lovely man that he is, he planted a little bed of forget-me-nots in his yard for me, even though they are very pesky and very hard to control. He went ahead and did that anyway for me. And he is a giant control freak, so the flower part of his garden, so the vegetable and fruit part is all very structured, very organized, but the flower part seems very organic. It seems very sort of just natural and not incredibly planned, and just it's not organized or structured or anything like that on appearance. But this is a lie, because every little part is planned out, every little part is thought out and organized. So he definitely does not want random forget-me-nots popping up all over his very, very beautiful yard. So I thought it was very sweet that he did that, and even more thoughtful was that he planted them in an area that I could easily see from inside, because I am not outdoorsy see, I did not inherit even a little part of his green thumb. And most of the days I do not go into the back of the yard because the cat always hangs out front. So I'm out front several times a day, but there was no suitable area there for the forget-me-nots. And so he planted them where I could see them through the window from inside. So I thought that was very, very thoughtful. And so, forget-me-nots, they bloom in spring. They bloom in spring. So, let me show you a picture of them in bloom. I have a picture here, sort of showing a bigger area, and then this is closer. This is closer. You can see them in bloom. Now I realize this area looks very structured right now, so I'm just going to see if I can follow up with a picture of the garden. Where you can get more of an idea of what it looks like. My niece is in every picture. So, I don't think I'm going to be able to show you. I will probably have some on the computer. Okay, I'm sort of in the way of this. Okay, I can crop myself out. You can kind of see. So that's just one little area of the flower garden. So you can kind of see what I mean. It looks very, natural, organic. But it is all very structured and planned out. So it's really very sweet that he did this. So these bloom in early spring, and when, I saw them when they finished blooming, I noticed how beautiful they were still. So I had never actually seen forget-me-nots that had finished blooming, or in Dutch we say had bloomed out. And I just love them. I love the way they look. So they're just these little dried sprigs with small little former flower buds, and they're kind of a subtle dark purple color. Very pretty. pretty, and I just liked them a lot. So I asked him to gather a couple for me. Which he did, and now I keep them in this little vase. This little vase right here. It's like a quite yellow gold, and it's a very heavy metal. It's very heavy, like almost like lead. It's so heavy. And it has these intricate designs on it of flowers, these engravings of flowers. And I just thought that it was pretty. It goes really well with the picture frame that it stands next to. And I keep it next to my mom's little memorial card. And, well, I was planning to make a separate video with this, but I felt that it would fit the theme of this video very well. And it's part of what inspired the whole video, so. So, these little beautiful sprigs of bloomed out forget-me-nots. Not everything has to blossom to be beautiful. Okay. Now, the next part, I will be showing you a picture of my mom. And it is a picture on the cover of a little local magazine. It probably doesn't even exist anymore. I used some of my black post-its just to black out the title and edition, just in case we've got some detectives out here. So this is my mom. And I think it's such a beautiful picture of her. She was not easy to get posing for a picture. We have very few pictures of her where she is actually aware that a picture is being taken and where she is agreeing that the picture is being taken. She didn't like to get that was one of my favorites. And obviously I'm very biased, but to me she was one of the most beautiful women in the world. When she was younger, she is so beautiful. Incredible. And well, on this picture, she's in her 50s, so she's probably like 53 or 55 here. And yeah, I just think she's so beautiful. It's a shame you cannot really see her nails because, as I very recently told someone, the shape of my nails is the only physical attribute that I inherited from her. So the shape of my nail beds, which has been commented on many times in my channel's existence, I got from her. Unfortunately, my nails are not as strong as hers were. Hers were so strong. They were incredible. They would get so long and still be completely just indestructible. She'd keep them short though because she did a lot of cooking. Now, we are going to be taking a look at the article that's in here, which is an interview with her. So the reason she's on the cover of a magazine, but it's a local magazine. It's not like she was famous or anything, but she was very well known. She's very well known because she was very active in the cultural world, in the cultural scene around here, and mainly because of her cooking. So she would teach cooking classes and workshops, and she would speak at seminars and things like that about her heritage, her country, which was Suriname, by the way, if you don't know already, and the food and everything. So she participated in many events and got to know so many people. So everyone around here knew her, and it was very uncomfortable for me being the daughter of this woman because I am very introverted and I do not want people to talk to me when I'm in public. But whenever I went outside, people would recognize me and talk to me and say, "Hey, aren't you her daughter? And I love your mom so much, and I met her here or there," and they tell me something. So that was very uncomfortable. It was unpleasant when she was alive, and it was horrible after she passed. It was so much worse. So, but she was very well known. A funny anecdote regarding that is actually one time she was asked if she wanted to put her name on the list of people running for our local government in the town we live, because by law you had to have X amount of names on your list that were able to be elected per party, per political party. And so the party that my dad and her very much supported, which was the Green Party, basically. They asked her if she would be on the list, just on the list as filler. And so she was way at the bottom of the list, just way down. And she got so many votes that, she turned out to be the favorite, I guess. So the party wins, and then certain people are preferred to get a seat in city council or whatever. And yeah, so she got so many votes because everyone that saw her name was like, oh my god, I love her, I'm gonna vote for her. So completely unexpected, she actually, messed up the plan. She didn't go into politics or anything after that. That was definitely not what she wanted to be actively involved in. She was very politically aware, and it was very important to her, but she did not want to be actively involved in politics itself. And so, last thing before we get to the article is this piece of fabric here. So this is a cloth, and she talks about it in the article as well. But I want to explain while you can see it. And she says that it's pretty much sacred to her. Her mother gave it to her. And there's many things that you can see on it, among which the flag of Suriname, which you might recognize from being behind me very often in videos. So the flag. And the shield of arms is on here as well. You can't see it in the picture, I don't think, no. You can't see it in the picture, but the shield of arms of Suriname is on there as well. And then these shackled hands in broken chains, these represent the abolition of slavery in Suriname. So this is celebrated as an event called Getikoti, which means broken chains, I believe. Getikoti. And it's celebrated in Suriname and in Holland as well in July. And so this image is associated with the holiday and with that moment, which was in 1863. So part of this cloth is now framed in my sister's living room, see it all the time. Okay, let's get to the article. Okay, so obviously the article is in Dutch. I'm just going to talk about what she says, maybe add some information as well. We'll see. So in like the little blurb in the beginning, it says that they should have taken her picture during a cooking class because that is when she feels best, which is true. And so well, we'll get to that later. Okay, so she kind of begins her story when she came to Holland. So she was 21 when she moved from Suriname to Holland. And Suriname was colonized by the Netherlands, and at the time, maybe still, I don't know, you would automatically get the Dutch nationality as well if you were born in Suriname. So you could easily come over, which I think is pretty great, you know, because, and my mom mentions this in the article further on, she mentions something else regarding this. It was definitely not the case for example, people from the Congo and Belgium. Definitely not. So she could just move to Suriname, to the Netherlands without that being an issue. And she talks about how strange it was to finally be in the Netherlands, because at school in Suriname they were taught the 4 seasons as we have them here and not as they exist there. They were taught about, snow and building snowmen. They were taught about brick houses with red roofs and all these things that did not exist in Suriname, but that is what they were taught in high school. Dutch history, just everything Dutch, including the Dutch language. That was, and still is, the official language in Suriname. So it was very strange for her to, after all that indoctrination, see the reality of the Netherlands. And it was quite shocking because they were taught about so much wealth and so much civilization. And when she got there, she saw so much inequality and so much poverty and so many struggles, so many people struggling still. So that was very confrontational, she says. She continues that she lived in the Netherlands for 8 years, and but she met her dad. She met my dad, her husband, in Belgium. So, a cousin of hers was married to a Belgian man and living in Belgium. And she was visiting this cousin because she had just given birth to her first child. So she was visiting her cousin and the baby. And that is where she met my dad, who was the brother of her cousin's husband. So that sounds a little complex, so let me break it down. So my father's brother and my mother's cousin were married. And so my mom met my dad at the baby shower type thing. And so, yeah, that's where they met and fell in love. And really created this very special, like, family unit that, because you have to see that they were very close. So it's my mom and her cousin, and then my father and his brother. So they were like one family unit, and they ended up having 3 sons, and my mom and my dad had 3 daughters, and we're very close to the sons. I say we, but I personally am not close to anyone. It's just how I am. But our family is very close to their family because we're double related. We're not linked by blood on one side and marriage on the other. We're linked by blood on both sides. So we're just very, and especially before I came along, at first, after they met, they did long distance for a while, and then my dad moved to the Netherlands so they could be together and get married. So my dad moves to the Netherlands, and they lived in Amsterdam for 2 years. But then my mom decided to quit working to raise my sister, and that's when they moved back to Belgium, because my dad was never happy in the Netherlands. My dad is like me, introverted, antisocial, just anxious control freak, and he never fared well in the Dutch culture. And so he very much wanted to come back. And since my mom wasn't working anymore, and work was the reason that she was living in the Netherlands, so they were able to move to Belgium because my dad would be the only one working, and my mom didn't need to have her degree recognized. Basically, she had a teaching degree, but it was not recognized in Belgium, so she couldn't teach here, only in the Netherlands. So yeah. So then they moved here, and that's when they formed this super close family unit with my aunt and uncle, who were also living here with their kids. So, my two of the older cousins and then my two older sisters, they were really just like one family unit, doubly related. And by the time I came around, they had moved back to the Netherlands, and my mom and dad stayed in Belgium, so I didn't really get that same experience, but we were still, I would definitely regard them as my closest family. By the way, the middle one of the sons is the Film Fellow. So the Film Fellow, which is a photography channel on YouTube, that's my cousin, who I am doubly related to because his mom was my mom's cousin and his dad was my dad's brother. So that's my cousin, the Film Fellow. I will link his channel below, and I would appreciate it very much if you subscribe to him. If you have an interest in photography and film photography, definitely subscribe to him. But even if it's just, as a favor to me, I would love that if you subscribe to his channel. I will link it below. So, unfortunately, they have lost both of their parents. Their mom not that long ago, unfortunately, and their dad a long time ago, unfortunately, as well. So they also suffer in the tragedy that haunts my family. So, okay, to continue the interview. So they lived in Amsterdam for 2 years and then moved to Belgium, and at the time of this article, she had been living in Belgium for like 20 years. She says that the step from Holland to Belgium was an even bigger shock to her than from Suriname to Holland. Basically because in the Netherlands they were way ahead of us in terms of building a multicultural society and celebrating that aspect. So here she was one of the very few Black people around, and in my town, like the actual town we live in, she was literally the first. Literally. And I recently posted on Instagram that there's a family, a mixed family that just moved in across the street from us, and they're genuinely the second people of color that have lived in our block. It's ridiculous. So in Belgium, she had a very rough time. She experienced a lot of racism, a lot of xenophobia. She says that she still feels that she always has to explain why she's here that she always has to justify her right to exist in this space. So she had a very hard time with that. Not just that, but where my dad and I are hardcore introverts, my mom was an hardcore extrovert. Like ridiculously. Indescribable. She was the sun. Like in every room, in every event, people would just gravitate around her. They would just be drawn to her and soak in the light and the joy and the exuberance, and she was the sun. She was the sun. The day she died, this town lost its sun and it never came back. And so Belgium generally not so much with the extroversion, just like among strangers. I mean, obviously Belgium probably has as many extroverts and introverts as any other country, but it is not the norm here to talk to strangers, to say hello or smile to people in the street, not even your neighbors. Like, you don't really just knock on your neighbor's door for something. If you're stranded on the street, on the side of the road, no one's going to stop to help you. People just mind their own here. For me, heaven. For my dad, heaven. For my mom, hell. So she had a tough time here. So, but she does emphasize that was because she was black. And that in the Netherlands she had the same rights as as someone that was born in the Netherlands, and in Belgium she was always just the foreigner. She was the foreigner, always. And so this is where she mentions that, this is not because Suriname was a Dutch colony, because the Congolese people, which was a Belgian colony, they do not have any, they do not have a comparable experience here as she had in the Netherlands. So it's not a, my colony first type of thing. It's just Belgium has a really bad problem with racism kind of thing. Which is not funny. I'm laughing while I say that, but it's not funny. Let me make that clear, that it's not funny. And my mom suffered from it a lot, and even we suffered. So especially my oldest sister, and that's why she has that's one of the reasons that she has more problem being white presenting, is the term she uses, because she experienced a lot of racism when she was younger. So even though she's almost as light as I am, it was enough. The proximity to blackness was enough for her to experience the racism. And, so that is one of the things that ties into her struggle with her mixed identity. Whereas by the time I came around, that was a lot different. So I did have friends. Well, I did have, there were kids in school whose parents would not allow me to come over because my mom was black. And I did get some slurs directed towards me, especially around the time of the ridiculous blackface tradition in December. Kids would mock me because, they'd say, oh, your mom is this character. So there was still some of it that I personally experienced, but so much less than my oldest sister. Obviously, though, the middle sister, who actually looks clearly like a light-skinned black person or person of color, opinions differ. She obviously got most of it. Okay, so she talks about her cooking afterwards, and so she kind of explains how she got into it and then why she does it. So even as a little girl, she loved cooking, and she really developed that talent. And through cooking she expresses herself. Through cooking she shows who she is. So through the food that she gives to people and teaches people how to make, she is learning them. She's teaching them about herself, about her culture. And she says literally that her mission is to show people and to let them taste that Black people have great, tasty, wonderful, positive things too. So that's what she says her mission is. That she talks a lot during her cooking classes, and that she teaches about her culture. And there's these dolls that she mentioned that you have seen, and they're usually here behind me in videos. And right now they're standing there because I want to make a video with them as well. But I am quite sure at this point that that's going to have to be a separate video. So I'm sorry about that. But in my first version of this, I felt like I was just too brief about things. I didn't say enough, and I didn't do the fullness of my mom's personality justice. I still won't, because that's honestly impossible, but this is going a lot better. But the consequence of that is that we won't be going into depth about the dolls. So she talks talks about the cooking, typical food in Suriname, and how it is really a blend of African food and Asian food from China, Pakistan, Indonesia, all, enriching the food in Suriname. And she did get her a chef's degree in French food as well, and just, well, she says Belgian food, but honestly I don't even know what that is. So she says that she also took 10 years of evening classes to get a chef's degree in the French kitchen, and it was just a degree she needed if she wanted to be able to have a catering company. That didn't happen in the end. She wasn't allowed the time and the opportunity, but she did get a degree and took 10 years of classes. So she then talks about how in 1996 she went back to Suriname for the first time after 25 years, and that was a very big shock again, because she didn't belong there anymore. And then when she got back, she struggled with depression, just to somehow reconcile all of that. So then she talks about the piece of fabric, the cloth, which I already talked about. And she talks about this, something else that's very important to her, which was this women's organization, multicultural women's organization, where she was heavily involved in. She was kind of one of the founding members and did all of the administration and planning, and he's very involved in it. And it was an organization to bring immigrant women in Belgium together. Well, not all of Belgium, but locally here. Basically to bring women from all these different cultures together, because Belgians are such a, well, sort of, this is probably bad if I say antisocial, but sort of a more standoffish people. It's very hard for these women that migrated to Belgium to find connections with others. And often the husbands would go out to work and they would have a social life because of that. And the women would be stuck inside and have their whole life be their children, their home, their husband. And to break through that, they founded this organization to bring all these women from different countries together, and they would, help each other learn Dutch. They would learn from each other's cultures. They would just form bonds, lifelong bonds and friendships, and be broken out of that isolation. And that was very important to her. And she traveled so much because of this. She went to so many different countries speaking on this topic, and with these women, like, they would organize trips and just so many different activities. It was really cool. And we, as her kids, were very often included. I think especially me, because I was the youngest. So she couldn't just leave me at home. So she would very often take me along with her. And I'm very introverted. But I make an exception for foreigners. Yeah, I am all about, like, affirmative actions of sorts. I will genuinely be extra nice and sociable around anyone that's usually discriminated against because of their ethnicity or race. So I really enjoyed being around these women and being around these cultures. So that really shaped me as well. If I did not have her as a mom, it would not have ended well, because everything in me just wants to crawl under a rock and shun all human contact. And she is the sole reason that I at least appear to be a somewhat, socially adapted person. Yeah, this had a lot to do with that. Okay, and then she ends with a recipe. It's a recipe for moxie alesi. Moxie alesi. Moxie alesi, which means mixed rice. So it's just mixed rice, moxie alesi. But if you say it naturally, you just say moxalesi, moxalesi. So you swallow the I in moxie, moxalesi. And it's one of my favorite dishes that she made, and really it's like a blanket term. It's kind of like saying pizza or pasta. It's a dish, but there are so many different variations. There are so many different ways that you can make it. So you can play around with the ingredients a lot. So yeah, moxalesi. So that was the article. Now I am just quickly going to show you the dolls, but I'm not going to go in depth about their clothes right now, just from lack of time. But so if that's something that you would like me to do in the future, let me know and I can tell you. So these are two dolls from Suriname, and they represent two traditional styles of dress. So this lovely lady is Kotomisi. She's in Kotomisi because she's wearing a koto, and the head wrap is called an angisi, and And then if this lovely lady is wearing a bangi, I think the skirt, the wrap skirt is called bangi, and the fabric as well. And so this was traditional for the Creole women who were stolen from Africa and enslaved. And this skirt was traditional for the Maron people who were stolen from Africa but escaped into the jungle of Suriname. Suriname is still 90% just forest, just jungle. So the stolen people that escaped, they formed their own tribes in the jungle. And so this wrap skirt is part of their traditional clothes. Now, the head wrap I don't know about. I don't know if that's accurate for the Marons at the time, but the top certainly wasn't. So I suspect that the top was added for our Western, what's the word? To protect our Western virtue. So, so if you want me to talk a little bit more about this, let me know. So I'm just going to show them while I end with one more thing, because I know that it's going to be asked. Now, I personally have never traveled to Suriname. So even my mom herself, she just went back the one time, and I never went. My sisters have visited Suriname, the middle one twice even. But so the reason that I never went is basically, when I was younger, the reason was money. It's very expensive to fly there. It's a very expensive flight. So we simply could not afford to go as a family. So when I was younger, that was just not an option for me to go there with my mom. And that's really the only way that I would have wanted to do it, is with her. Because my link to Suriname is my mom. My mom is my link to Suriname. And beyond that, the appreciation that I have for Suriname and the culture equals the appreciation that I have for certain other countries and their cultures. I don't feel extraordinarily connected to Suriname. So after she passed, I honestly did not have the desire to visit, because Suriname is her and I lost her. I don't have any sort of connection to the family that lives there. I had a connection to my grandmother, but she also passed, unfortunately. And so I was just never called to visit. Sint Maarten, which is an island in the Caribbean. Saint Martin, I guess in English, Saint Martin, I don't know. But a very good friend of mine lives there. She was born there, but she studied here. And we studied we went to college together, and we became very good friends. And so if I were to visit that just area, I would much prefer to go to Sint Maarten than to Suriname. So that is why I've never been. Okay, so I am much more pleased with this second version of the video. I feel like I was able to sketch a better picture. Still only like a fraction of the woman that she was, because honestly, she was phenomenal. At her funeral, it was just, there were so many people, it was insane. With the wake and the funeral combined, there were more than 1,000 people that attended. And the funeral was held in the Catholic Church. My mom was Protestant, but all the Protestant churches here are pretty small, and, well, it was very clear that we were going to need a lot of space, so it was held in a Catholic church, but with the priest and, so the Catholic priest and the Protestant minister or whatever, side by side, held the service, and the church was packed. So there were people sitting with the choir, and there were people standing, and there were people that couldn't even make it in. So this woman is just something else. Just incredible. And everyone that knew her loved her. I was recently rereading my journals, and I read that she even got, well, even the president of Suriname sent her flowers after her passing. The actual president. But that's very much tied to her brother and the function that he fulfilled for Suriname. But still. Okay. I hope you enjoyed